Welcome back to Good Day LA at 8:43 in the morning. Do you remember Pong? Well, unless you've been serving on a sequestered jury since the 1970s, you should remember it. Video games have come a long way since then. Today, some video games gross more money than some motion pictures, and producing one can be a major undertaking. So we went behind the scenes at Activision and got a close-up look at the production of a new game, MechWarrior 2.
Roger, Dropship Command. I got the recon data and one missile analyst on my tail. DC catapult on the rise.
Dropship Command here. My weapon systems are down. I'm getting the hell out of here.
Negative. I need more time.
You're out of time. I'm not getting paid enough to die.
There's still room in hell for your sorry carcass.
Look at the bright side, kid. You get to keep all the money.
Yeah, there is no money. The company wasn't doing well. MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries is a 1996 giant robot simulation game. After a botched mission, we inherit a dysfunctional mercenary enterprise and a piece of garbage light mech, an in-universe equivalent of this thing. Employees 1.
If you're reading this, by now you know that I'm dead.
The game is a standalone expansion to MechWarrior 2 31st Century Combat. We'll travel around the BattleTech fictional universe, see the sites, the factions, learn their lore, and do jobs that require giant robots and flexible ethics. This game makes for an excellent introduction to the franchise because it has a pretty good story, which I always thought was underappreciated even in the community. This is also a game that is, at the moment of recording, unavailable for purchase for weird legal reasons. And even if you manage to find an old copy on Amazon, chances are you won't be able to make it work without a potentially unsolvable technical issue ruining the experience.
It's a futuristic combat simulator game. If you've ever seen Empire Strikes Back, the protagonists in the game look like those giant walkers on the ice planet Hoth, and you are a pilot of one of these large giant robots.
BattleTech is three things actually. Most obviously, it's a science fiction story about giant robots. The lightest mechs weigh 20 tons and the heaviest around 100. That is almost twice as much as an Abrams tank. And there are even heavier experimental designs. But it's not just about the hardware. BattleTech is also Game of Thrones in space. Feudal politics, intrigue, backstabbing, secret plots, media manipulation. You can make a great Crusader Kings type game in this universe. Finally, BattleTech is about combined arms warfare. It's not just mechs. There are tanks, planes, infantry, and even naval vessels. Many tools of war are named after legendary historical figures and nations. Sovietsky Soyuz class cruiser, Potemkin troop carrier, J. Edgar hovercraft, that's clever. This Zhukov heavy tank is literally a mammoth tank from Red Alert 1. The weapon configuration is practically the same. The events of most BattleTech stories take place in an extensively colonized region of space called the Inner Sphere. The region contains approximately 2,000 inhabited worlds. The scale of everything is much smaller than in, say, 40K, and the loss of the single planet can have catastrophic consequences for a great house owning it. The great houses are sort of like modern nations, but in space and with a feudal shtick. They have intelligence agencies, consumer brands, industries, but they also have princes, dukes, counts, and arranged marriages. BattleTech Warfare is, well, you won't be able to tell by looking at the screenshots of the modern games, but the franchise has a theme of technological regression. Despite there being lasers and space fighters, in some ways the technology in this universe seems to be more primitive than that of the late-stage USSR. There is a reason for this. A long time ago, the hostile factions were part of the interstellar government called the Star League. Peace, prosperity, and advanced technology. The zenith of human civilization, according to some. But the good times didn't last. All the petty little kings and princes kept politicking, scheming, and eventually, the League was torn apart. Disgusted by their behavior, Alexander Kerensky, the commander of the Star League Defense Force, led his vast army armies on an exodus away from the inner sphere into the deep periphery. That was almost 300 years ago. They were never seen again. The exiles took some of the best scientists and engineers with them, leaving the great houses without much of their R&D. More was lost in the subsequent succession wars. Learning about history just makes me upset. Let's go make space money.
The good news is you can keep your mech and any money we have in the bank.
Venaria is the game's optional tutorial contract. Will be attached to Hansen's Rough Riders, a rowdy but reliable merc unit with a history. Our CO is someone called Unther.
Patrol the area around your dropship. Go to these nav points.
I hope this Sergeant Unther isn't a loser, writes our character in his journal. Based on out-of-game sources, we can make a guess that the canon name of the protagonist is Grady Kiefer. Canon being in quotes because the video games are usually excluded from the canon. In the cutscenes, Grady sounds a lot younger than the depiction I'm using, but let me put it like this. He has a very stressful life.
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
So the game looks like absolute ass. It looked like ass in 1996 too.
We're generating an entire world on the fly, and you can move a camera throughout that world, and things will be different depending on your camera angle.
Unfortunately, it's not one of those instances when primitive graphics enable sophisticated gameplay. The damage model? Well, it exists. You can damage and shoot off arms and legs. The destruction of any of the torso areas ends the mech. But this is no War Thunder. There are no penetration mechanics. Armor just adds hit points. It is possible to damage the internal components, but that's usually what happens when your HP gets low, and you are about to die or lose that part of the mech anyway. We spend a few weeks on Venaria, and the contract eventually culminates in a mission where we take down a duo of pirate mechs, our final exam.
Shoot for his cockpit. Kill the meat. Save the metal.
This is indeed a mechanic. Depending on contract conditions, we might be allowed to take some of the liberated salvage with us.
Thermal optics engaged.
The thing we're fighting is called a Javelin, an ancient recon design. In the Prime configuration, it's armed with a pair of short-range missile launchers. These are unguided, kind of like direct-fire grads.
Enemy mech destroyed.
The pirate's wingman is operating a Panther. Most Panthers have a high-power energy weapon in one of the arms. These generate tons of heat. The circular-looking thing is the heat indicator. When it goes into the red, your mech will initiate an auto-shutdown sequence. Needless to say, it's not good to be shut down in the middle of a firefight.
One more mission and I can afford that 2-bed, 2-bath back on Outreach.
The centrally located world of Outreach is the planet of Mercenaries. This is where we'll be staying between contracts. The pirate occupation of Venaria is over. Pirates abandoned their position in a suicidal attack that left their forces decimated. Anonymous citizens claim they did so to avoid excessive damage to Venarian cities, where their friends and family reside. Whatever their reasons, our work here is done.
Adjectives to describe MechWarrior 2 would be groundbreaking, action-oriented, photorealistic, real-time 3D rendered war game.
Galadon 5. Our first not tutorial contract. We are working for House Kurita, the ruling house of the Draconis Combine, which is a BattleTech Japan. This fictional setting was created in the United States in the 80s. The mech China is also a thing, but it's usually portrayed as being not quite as space important because the IRL China wasn't a major player in the real world yet.
Accessing personnel.
I love that the menu navigation is voice acted. The mercenary enterprise has to be managed. We pay salaries to mech warriors our company employs. The mechs themselves have to be repaired after operations. The parts and refit procedures cost money.
Destroy the 3rd floor of the IS Bank building.
The intelligence discovered that a combined small arms company was illegally supplying the rebels. The Kurita solution is to park a mech next to their office building in downtown Washkatin and blast it to smithereens.
Objective successful.
At that point, the designers will then take their drawings that they've drawn out and they'll hand it off to a 3D artist. That 3D artist will then create three-dimensional images of the buildings and of the terrain.
The Combine underestimated the rebels. They took Washkatan. The revolt is spreading to other Kurita worlds.
Second armor platoon here. We are under heavy fire. Require immediate support. Over.
Grady is confused and frustrated. He can't see the big picture and has no idea if we are winning or losing. It seems the Galadon situation favors the Combine, but the rebellion might be making progress elsewhere.
Your target. Destroy the leaders of the Beta-7 resistance.
Did we choose the wrong side? A buddy of ours says the rebels are also hiring. Makes you think. This thing is a Jenner, an iconic light mech associated with House Kurita. The last factory making Jenners was destroyed almost 100 years ago, but they managed to build so goddamn many of them, they're still common. I love the stupid-ass Jenner art.
Enemy mech destroyed.
The mission is a success. The city of Washkatan is once again in Kurita hands. The Combine propaganda claims that the rebellion on Galadon 5 is coming to an end. The officials keep making grandiose statements about crushing the desperate peasants who resist our inevitable supremacy and making an example of pathetic souls who defy us. Are we the baddies? The Kurita liaison officer thanks us for our service and the contract is concluded. Not bad for our first real job, but I wouldn't, invest in real estate on Galadon. The Yandex Corporation, represented by Vice President of Operations Rex Youngclow, hires a mercenary unit to investigate a new hair care and personal hygiene product manufacturing plant site on Pitkin to ensure its safety. The job pays an amazing 5 million C-bills. C-bill is short for Comstar bill, Comstar being the only internet service provider in the inner sphere. The monopoly gives Comstar incredible leverage over other powerful players. They can read your DMs and your browser history. The currency was introduced as a method of payment for what is essentially an internet service, and its value is based on data transmission time and delivery distance. Basically, the money in the robots world is internet minutes. Our protagonist is impressed with the sum. I've never realized the old commander was robbing us blind, he writes in the journal.
Group fire. Engaged.
It's a trap. The pirates have been offering too good to be true contracts to mercenary units, then ambushing them and stealing their equipment.
Enemy mech destroyed.
We are lucky the dropship captain who got us to Pitkin was still in comms range. Captain Kelly saved our ass. The CNS reporter on Outreach asked for our comment. We were aware from the beginning that the Yandex job was a scam. We just took it on ourselves to clean up some of the scum trying to prey on hardworking, honest-living mercs, says our protagonist, lying through his teeth. New Ivarsen is House Davion territory. Welcome to Space America, but we won't be staying long. The Federated Commonwealth is helping the Kurita rebels with arms and money. It's a proxy war. We are to head to the world of Proserpina, which is one of the planets that rebelled against Kurita rule. The rebels call themselves the Free Mutineers. We fought against them on Galadon 5. Proserpina is a dump, but it's a strategically important dump. Our first mission is to reach the rebel base hidden in the desert.
In putting a video game together, there's many elements to a game like MechWarrior 2, The Clans. First thing that we'll do is the group of designers will sit down and they will create the layout for a mission.
Since this is the third sequential Mech 2 game, the developers were very experienced at making missions. The environments and combat scenarios are some of the most diverse in the series.
Enemy mech destroyed. Emergency heat shutdown overridden.
Both the rebels and the government would later claim victory in this engagement. I suppose this is realistic. The Combine put a bounty on our head.
Your target, Commander Varus.
The mech is a Vindicator, a jack-of-all-trades kind of a medium. Cheap, decent at most things, easy to produce, the Sherman of mechs. Very popular in the Capellan space, which is BattleTech China, but it's found everywhere, really.
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Raider 1. Enemy patrol approaching. Stay in the cave until they pass.
Our task is to assassinate a Draconis commander. Kurita officers are known for their cruelty, but this guy went beyond the call of duty, allegedly ordering Draconis mechs to open fire on a crowd back when the protests were still peaceful.
Enemy mech destroyed.
Another operation has us taking out a lance of assault mechs, that is, mechs that weigh 80 tons and above. We don't stand a chance against something like this in a fair fight.
Find us that Draconis assault Raider 1.
But this ain't gonna be a fair fight thanks to these long-tom artillery pieces. We have to make a radar contact with the enemy, and then the guns will do the killing. Our CO is talking to some Davion bigwigs, and supposedly they want to use Proserpina as a staging ground for the upcoming campaign against House Kurita. The problem is the timetable. We have less than a week to defeat the Combine. Yesterday that seemed impossible, but the events of the next day would completely change our calculus. The Draconis soldiers have turned on the citizens of Proserpina's capital, a revenge for battlefield failures. Many of the mutineers have relatives living in the capital. We are going in with everything we've got. Since taking the capital is so important, for this mission we were temporarily issued an assault mech of our own. Stalker is a venerable design. It's almost 500 years old. The machine is slow, but heavily armored and capable of engaging enemies at all ranges. The mech has a design quirk called minimal arms, which is not mechanically reflected in the game, but it has an effect in tabletop. Makes it harder to get up if it falls.
Reactor critical. Shutdown imminent. Emergency heat shutdown overridden.
Nearly 100,000 people lost their lives in this war. The Federated Commonwealth got their staging ground. They took back the Stalker after the mission was done, and that honestly sucks. We got no respect around here.
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online.
Our job is to act as a trainer for a young Davion prince. The dude is only 17 or something in the line for the throne, so he's not a significant character, but significant enough so we have to pretend that he's in charge. Is that a dragon? A strange choice for a Davion, since dragons are very strongly associated with the Combine, who mass-produced a fuck-ton of them. It's a 60-tonner with a very recognizable torso design. The mechs can kick and punch in tabletop and in some of the games, but not in MW2 unfortunately. The low profile quirk makes it harder to hit, but again it's mostly a tabletop thing. Dragon is basically the BattleTech T-34. It exists in numerous configurations and variants, like this thing. Great Worm it's called, a lighter version of Dragon, one of the first unique clan battle mechs ever developed. With the creation of the OmniMech technology, the Great Worm was eventually reduced to a Solama unit, and its production finally ceased in 2872. Spoilers! Forget what you just heard, there are no clans. The prince bravely charges into battle, and these pirate lights are not much of a threat. All this shit looks staged as fuck.
Enemy mech destroyed.
The dashing Prince Luther seems to have come of age, writes the Royal Watch magazine. He recently led an unidentified mercenary unit into battle against pirates on Mecham. Prince Luther was awarded the Iron Talon for bravery. The Free Rasalhague Republic used to be a part of the Combine, a predominantly Scandinavian population inside a Japanese Star Empire. This is how things used to be until 40-something years ago, when a Rasalhagian bodyguard assassinated coordinator Kohiro Kurita. During the Fourth Succession War, many Rasalhagians greeted the Lyran troops as liberators. The Combine lost dozens of worlds before the war's end in 3030.
Your target. Disable Colonel Cottingham's mech.
Colonel Cottingham suffered a nervous breakdown. The disturbed officer stole a battle mech and fled. Our job is to find and capture him with minimum publicity. So old Cottingham has gone off his nut. I guess we all get put out to pasture sooner or later. I just want to make sure then when it's my time, I've put enough away to live in style. We are piloting a catapult, an old and respected second-line fire support mech. Powerful and affordable.
Internal heat at 700 Kelvin.
Shooting off the leg disables the colonel. Sarah Carpenter, FRR Director of Mercenary Affairs, said they appreciate our tact. We will inform our warriors of Cottingham's fate, but the FRR will not be dragged through the press. This mission actually takes place on an ice ship Paradise Hope, in space, about 1 astronomical unit away from planet Lysen. The planet is water-starved, but the Free Rasalhague Republic plans to haul a giant chunk of ice, free-floating in the Lysen system, 150 million kilometers to the planet. The Hydrodynamics Corporation expresses concern that the ice chunk could break up in Lysen's atmosphere, endangering the planet, as well as its business model of supplying imported water to the world.
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
This is one of the more strange and exotic operations in any of the MechWarrior games.
Enemy aircraft destroyed.
Aerospace fighters are similar to conventional fighter aircraft, but as the name suggests, they are capable of operating in both atmosphere and in space. They are about as heavy as battle mechs. There are 100-ton heavily armed and armored starfighters. The arrogant fucker bumped us out of the way. We can actually hire an aerospace pilot for our mech company, but that feature seems to be bugged. They very rarely show up in missions.
Thermal optics engaged.
Yellow snow. That thing above us is a dropship, and the huge body in the distance is a jump ship, the means of FTL travel in this universe. Command says some of the mercenaries somehow made their way inside Paradise Hope and are sabotaging our efforts. The mission spawns us right in front of an enemy mech lance. The early BattleTech designs are so stupid looking, I love them.
Enemy mech destroyed.
After we mop up the mercs, the engineers discover a small nuclear device implanted on the wall of the cave. If I recall correctly, if you take too long to kill the bad people, the nuke will actually go off. And surprisingly, it will probably not kill you, but it will destroy a part of an ice ship, meaning Paradise Hope will reach its destination with less ice. A news feed stated that the Dread Legion was not being paid fully for their work in the Draconis Combine. Their content arbitration went sour when Comstar sided with Kurita. The two parties had a falling out, and as a result, the Legion took the planet Rasalhague as compensation. A very arrogant move. The main character thinks Fukuzawa must have fucked them over pretty bad if they dared to do something like this.
Group fire engaged.
We took control of the water supplies and cut the Dread Legion off from their dropships. Ordinarily, this is when they would sue for peace. Negotiations would commence, and then the mercs would part with some of their mechs and cash, and the Combine would allow them to depart. That's how these things normally go, but not this time.
Destroy all enemies that try to come down the pass.
Fukuzawa wants blood. Around half of the Legion would be killed before the survivors find the means to flee off-world, and eventually we discover the reason they were so interested in this planet. A lost stack cache was discovered on Rasalhague. Lost stack is a term for advanced technology that existed during the Star League era and was subsequently lost during the wars between the great houses. Koki Hussein, a local politician, told the reporters that the cache contains several extremely advanced computers. Fukuzawa would love to get his hands on this. Rasalhague is within the Draconis territory, but Major Hussein already entered negotiations to sell the cache to the Federated Commonwealth. "We are sick of being pawns," he said. "Now we can afford our own mechs to keep people off our planet." It was all over the news. Henrik Grimm III, the pirate king of Oberon, led his raiders against the Free Rasalhague Republic planet of New Caledonia. In an act of brutality that astonished the Inner Sphere, the pirates razed the city of Lost Hope, butchering its inhabitants. There was no strategic reason to do this, just some sort of a petty grudge he had. The battle against the pirates is unsophisticated. A lance of our mechs confronts a lance of their mechs in the middle of nowhere.
We also have an originally composed audio score.
The 1995 MechWarrior 2 was always praised for its fantastic soundtrack, but this version is even better. quite a few treadmill-worthy tracks in here.
Enemy mech destroyed. Mission successful.
Sarah Carpenter, the FRR Director of Mercenary Affairs, spoke with reporters today about the incident. When we hired the mercs, we told them to show no mercy, she said. We didn't want the pirates' mechs or their money. We wanted their blood. Rumors have spread that Henrik Grimm III, the leader of Oberon's pirates, was able to escape the debacle and is still wandering the periphery, seeking out allies. Solaris is a system on the border of the Lyran Commonwealth, which is like BattleTech Germany, and the Free Worlds League, which I heard described as BattleTech Byzantium. But I have a friend who is a League fan, and he's from Canada, so my brain chose to remember the Free Worlds League as the Canadian Star Empire. And Solaris VII is It's the Vegas of BattleTech. But instead of conventional gambling, it's all about gladiatorial battles and giant robots. Other than that, it's the same. Fortunes are won and lost daily.
Your target, all enemy mechs. Your odds are 3-1 against.
Group fire. Engage.
Impressive area design. Let's be honest, nothing in this engine looks good, but they are making the best of it.
Your odds are 5-1 against.
The idea of mech gladiatorial combat turned out to be hugely influential and was explored by several subsequent MechWarrior games. The best implementation was in MechWarrior 4 Mercs. After the initial victory, some important people took interest in us. The protagonist was moved to a fancy hotel, and now he spends his time socializing with important off-world dignitaries. The hero is not impressed with these people at all. They are too stupid to live, he writes.
Your odds are 10-1 against.
Thermal optics. Engaged.
The final battle, the Iron Skull Mountain Arena. The blocky Atlas, 100 tons of guns and ammo, is one of the series' most iconic designs. The Atlas was originally intended to ensure the superiority of Star League Defense Force over the individual member armies, and was designed with specifications provided by Kerensky himself. Ironically, many of the mech warriors who refused his summons were Atlas pilots. It's also the mech we've been piloting for the last few years.
Critical hit. Sensors.
By the way, did you know that battle mech duels are real?
The audience is expecting essentially real life. They've heard so much about virtual reality, and they've heard so much about the giant strides that we're taking with this technology. We're pushing the technological envelope every day to the extent that people are very, very immersed in this environment that we're creating.
The first BattleTech Center was opened at the North Pier Mall in Chicago in 1990. It was equipped with 16 networked pods that resembled a BattleMech cockpit, each with over 80 separate controls. An early 90s robot deathmatch experience. The stalker we are shooting at belongs to one Daryl Dyer. Someone, who is clearly not a fan of Daryl's, informed us that his mech took serious damage to its left side in a battle yesterday. The internal structure was never repaired. It's still a weak point.
Enemy mech destroyed.
And so we are the Solaris champion of 3049. I expected Grady to be absolutely insufferable and full of himself, but no, I think he just wants to go back to work. The Wotan system is being terrorized by unknown attackers. A Davion official says these are probably Draconis, and I bet this is exactly what's going on. The player speculates that the unidentified enemy forces report is just a cover for a sensitive political mission. Whoever these guys are, our targeting computer can't seem to identify their mechs. This thing looks like an exotic variant of the Jenner. Supports the Draconis theory, since it's originally one of their designs. But the other two lights resemble nothing we've ever seen. And their commander? It's like a combination of a catapult and a marauder. A marapult, if you will. I am so clever.
Enemy mech destroyed.
Whoever they were, they stood no chance against our assault lance. Tamar Doherty, the officer of the FC Department of Mercenary Relations, assured reporters that the attackers were most likely a newly formed and still unknown pirate band. Since the dramatic escape, no one has seen the anonymous raiders, leaving the citizens of Wotan speculating on their origin. One noted local eccentric has spread the rumor that they are, in fact, an invading race from another galaxy, preparing to take over the universe. universe and enslave the human people. The Oberon Confederation is a minor state in the periphery, located near the Free Rasalhague Republic border. There is a number of tiny periphery nations like this one surrounding the inner sphere. Sarah Carpenter, FRR Director of Mercenary Affairs, hires us to launch a deep strike against the Oberon Confederation, with an explicit goal of eliminating the Pirate King Henrik Grimm III.
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Sigurd is a world with limited water and light gravity. Our target is a pirate airbase in the vicinity of a rock formation known as the Devil's Teeth.
Enemy mech destroyed.
We make short work of the defenders, but then a mysterious third party shows up.
Inner Sphere Barbarian. Call your name, family, and unit designation.
Meet the 11th Wolf Guards, which is a cluster in the clan Wolf Tumen. The clans are descendants of the self-exiled remnants of the Star League Defense Force, the military of the United Inner Sphere. Kerensky led them to deep space, past the periphery. Eventually they settled on the distant world of Strana Mechti. That was centuries ago. Then the former Star League elements were reformed into warrior nations, each named after a totem animal. While the Inner Sphere was mired in the destructive succession wars, the clans experienced a technological renaissance. This is why our targeting computer was unable to recognize their mech designs. They're new. I've completely lost the track of time. The other prisoners are pirates, members of Oberon's army. They say Grimm took his own life rather than fall into Clan Wolf's hands. Sometimes I wish I had the courage to do the same thing. Grady spends a month in a clan POW camp, and then a miracle happens. Our cellmate, Mitch Skylark, the Raider technician, was able to open the electronic lock on the barracks door. Hell yeah, we're driving a stolen hovercraft. A downgrade from our Atlas perhaps, but the enemies we'll be facing in this mission are lightweights.
Connecting to satellite link.
Like GTA 1? Not really. That's the wreck of the ship that got us to Sigurd. Our mechs are still inside because of a plot contrivance. The Oberon Confederation, the people we came here to kill, will end up being our saviors. The Raider dropship Fire Stallion is in high orbit overhead. They were about to leave, but our friend Skylar convinced them to try to help us out. We, of Clan Wolf, are the greatest warriors of the human race, first among the clans. Yet you, a mere mercenary, who cheapens the purity of warfare by placing a price on it, have escaped us using your low, dishonorable tactics. We will encounter you again, and we will destroy you. Looks like we're safe. But nobody believed our story. Descendants of the Star League? Kerensky? Children's tales. Is this Clan Wolf in the room with us now? Sarah Carpenter called our story an excuse for failure. A Comstar arbitrator approved Carpenter's petition to pay only half of our previously negotiated salary. While the mercenary story is hard to believe, socio-historians concede that a small pirate kingdom could have survived deep in the periphery for centuries, developing a wildly different culture. But the Rasalhague government believes that the entire report is a hoax, created by Gunheim Entertainment Multimedia Corporation. The sequel to their blockbuster Invaders from Beyond 2 is due to release in 3 weeks. The Draconis Combine needs experienced mercenaries to defend the world of Wolcott against periphery aggressors. All previous legal disagreements will be forgotten. No matter your history with the Combine, we can accommodate you. The commander of the garrison on Wolcott is the son of Theodore Kurita and heir to the Combine. This is real shit. The coordinator is taking the threat seriously. From now on, the rest of the campaign will have us battling the clan invasion, one of the greatest disasters in the history of the Inner Sphere. The battle for Wolcott begins with something called a bat chal, which is a clan war ritual. The attacker announces their identity to the defender, as well as the size of their force and their war goal. The defender responds by identifying what military forces they intend to use to defend the objective. They also have a right to choose the battlefield the challenge will take place on. The defender can ask for a prize of equal value that the attacker must surrender should they prove victorious. Once the details have been agreed upon. The challenge is closed with the phrase, "well bargained and done," spoken by both participants. To an Inner Sphere cell, this tradition might seem maladaptive, but you have to keep in mind that the explicit purpose of clan society is warfare. The clans wage war all the time, mostly against each other. Traditions such as Batshell were created to keep the collateral damage to absolute minimum, and it's arguably one of the reasons the clans are more technologically advanced than the great houses. However, during the invasion of the Inner Sphere, these traditions became a source of clan weakness, exploited by the spheroids. By faking their records, the Combine have made the Jaguar commanders underestimate our strength and commit too few forces to the field.
Reactor critical. Shutdown imminent.
The clanners we're fighting are the Smoke Jaguars of the Beta Galaxy, known as the Mistweavers. Galaxy is a clan term for a brigade.
Defend the supply depot.
Draconis Intelligence says a common strategy is to send in a light quick mechs to draw the defenders away from the target and then send a second group to make the kill. I've seen kids playing mech battle in the street come up with more sophisticated plans, says Grady, being super not impressed with the clan machinations.
Your target. Destroy the Smoke Jaguar Command Star.
The Draconis position is worse than they are willing to admit. Their entire western flank is nothing but damaged and depleted hovercraft units. That's what our journal says, but I've played MechWarrior Living Legends for like 1,000 or 2,000 hours, which made me quite red-pilled on hovercraft and what they can do to a mech.
Destroyed.
Dragon wounds Jaguar, says the news feed. At a press conference today on Tharkad, Prince Hans Davion of the Federated Commonwealth spoke with reporters about the war on Wolcott and the clan invasion in general. Although we of the Federated Commonwealth still disagree with the Combine imperialist philosophy, he says, we congratulate Theodore Kurita on his victory. We are willing to unite with them to face a common enemy. Our job is to go behind enemy lines and extract a lance of Rasalhague MechWarriors trapped on the clan-occupied world of Uzmakt. A very dangerous mission. Grady decides to do it for personal reasons. He wants a rematch against the 11th Wolf Guards.
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Radio silence must be maintained at all times. Once we find the target, we identify them with our sensors to signal them to follow us. The protagonist hates the wolves for completely understandable reasons, but personally, they've always been one of my favorite clans, together with Jade Falcons. Possibly because their icons are some of the less embarrassing ones. I mean, look at this. Or this. Monkey. A bear swastika. The creators of BattleTech basically used random clip art, it looks like.
Proceed to dust-off site for extraction.
Grady was supposed to be awarded the Golden Sun, the Rasalhague Medal of Honor, but he ended up skipping the ceremony and departing for outreach as soon as the funds cleared. Unsurprisingly, Grady doesn't respect these people. They are the same greedy fucks who refused to pay us after that mission when we spent 2 months in a clam POW camp. Last Frontier is the name of a planet deep within clan territory. This is another commando raid. We are one of the few people capable of doing the job. Infiltrate a clan facility, capture an assault mech, figure out the controls on the fly. Hopefully, after being a mercenary for many years, we developed an intuition for mech technology. Kodiak is a 100-ton monstrosity, the totemic mech of ghost bears. As expected from a clan design, it's more mobile and better armed compared to its Inner Sphere counterparts. The claws are just for aesthetics, they don't actually do anything.
All systems nominal.
Grady boards the Kodiak. Our protagonist doesn't fully trust the Combine, so he had his friend, the dropship commander Sean Kelly, quietly enter the system as a precaution, just in case the dragons would be unwilling to extract us. These things happen, and now it occurs to Grady that Kelly's presence creates new possibilities. We can choose to keep the Kodiak, but then the Draconis operatives would need to be silenced. The command will assume the Ghost Bears took them out. Risky, but if we pull it off, they will never know what happened. So what's it gonna be? Are we gonna become the employee of the year for our Combine masters? Or are we going to take the Kodiak for ourselves? We decide to take it. No witnesses, no survivors. I wonder if Kelly is the dropship captain from the intro.
Dropship command here. My weapon systems are down. I'm getting the hell out of here.
Negative. I need more time.
You're out of time. I'm not getting paid enough to die.
It would be weird for us to keep in touch after what happened, but I wouldn't put anything past this sociopath of a protagonist. Former bitter enemies, the Draconis Combine and the Federated Commonwealth, are taking a stand on the capital world of Lothian. Analysts predict that if Lothian falls, the Combine will space balkanize into hundreds of single-world pocket empires that will swiftly fall to the clans. Smoke Jaguars call this Operation Dragonslayer. Coordinator Takashi Kurita will be leading the defense of Lothian himself. We will be taking our orders directly from him.
Wait for the ambush to damage the clan mechs, then attack.
A bunch of industrial mechs, normally used for construction, have been equipped with bombs and fake armor so that they look combat capable.
All systems nominal.
We're ready to spring the trap. For it. Wait for it. Now, charge!
Even this late in the campaign, we keep seeing creative combat scenarios. Something that dramatically differentiates this game from MechWarrior 4 or MechWarrior Living Legends is very low time to kill. The mechs are easy to take down, and they lose limbs pretty much as soon as you look at them funny. The issue is exacerbated by bad AI. This Timberwolf just kept marching forward towards the player, ignoring everything around it, not maneuvering. As much as I love this game, it's more fun to watch a video about MW2 mercs rather than to play it.
Your target, the enemy Smoke Jaguar commander, located somewhere in the Kataguchi Valley.
At this stage of the adventure, Grady is both overqualified and expendable.
Reactor critical.
It's a little unclear from the footage, but what happened here was a decapitation. We killed the commander by destroying the mech cockpit.
Your target, destroy all enemy mechs.
The last stand. The Jaguars are in front of us, and behind us is the Imperial City.
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Today will determine the fate of the Draconis Combine and perhaps the entire Inner Sphere. There are a lot of enemies in this mission, but the passive AI, as well as the general fragility of mechs, make things manageable. Doesn't mean it's easy. The machines you see are some of the best in their class. This thing is called a Warhawk. It's armed with 4 particle cannons, and it tore us a new asshole. Eventually, the Kodiak lost both of its arms and suffered critical damage to the side torsos. All our weapon systems are destroyed. We finished the mission by ordering our lance mates to focus fire the last Jaguars still standing.
Enemy mech destroyed. Mission successful.
Towards the end of the second day of fighting, the Draconis and mercenary forces finally turned back the Smoke Jaguars and reclaimed Lothian. The Inner Sphere had its proof that the clans could be stopped. We beat the game and get to watch the final cutscene. You know, I've been thinking, how the hell did the dragons fail to notice that we were piloting the only Kodiak in spheroid possession? Maybe they did notice. Maybe that's why Takashi kept sending us on suicide missions. The clans are not space Nazis, by the way. They have no genocidal agenda. It's a philosophical question if they are better or worse than the Inner Sphere governments. It's symbolic, you see. The Kodiak is a scary clan tech. The mech that destroyed it is an Atlas. This is a display of triumph of the Inner Sphere over clan culture. Grady's mercenary career lasted for 8 years, but it was intense. He will not become a Cottingham. I think it's only a matter of time before they put the 2 and 2 together. You should change your name, Grady, or better yet, come back.
Reactor online. Sensors online.
To Sigurd. You killed enough wolves to make them respect you. That's how clans work. There is a new home waiting for you, Grady. Speaking of a new home, I thought I'd make a little ad for my boy Alex, who does art for this channel, as well as for some big video game channels like Mandalore and H-Bomb, and for the popular The New Order mod for Hearts of Iron, among other things. Recognize the subtle theming in his work. So Alex and Ina are refugees building a new life in Iceland. I will be linking their Ko-Fi and Patreon. Consider directly supporting or commissioning art from them, cause that would really help them out. These videos are generously backed by the members of Anti-Clam Action Committee, including Jim Lawrence, Yuri Solodovnichenko, a 2-room apartment in Bobruisk, Belarus, Combat Lobster, Ray Ners, Sky Spy 7, Chungolian, 1967 Ford Mustang, Dima Urban, Assassil and Beneful the Doggo, Nathan Kabiska, C6, RB, Hibernia Scholar, Richard Jackson, Felix Cherevko, Mac Harris, Byron Callan, Haim Rowan, Brian Johnson, Strupp, Alpha Potty. The video uses borrowed footage from this channel. Thank you, Sir MMPD Radic. I wasn't able to make the game work in a stable fashion, even with the fan-made fixes. Another thing I want to comment on is the classic BattleTech font I've been using and abusing. My first thought was, wow, that shit is unreadable. But my second thought was, and that's excellent. Means you are getting an authentic experience. The visual elements of this franchise were always extremely uneven in quality and stylistically inconsistent. Experiencing this is part of the journey. So, MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries is a video game. A good story, but it's too mechanically and visually crude to play. Why not try out MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries? The story is just as good and there is more gameplay depth. Unfortunately, the graphics in that one also look dated, but it's a different kind of dated. Coincidentally, one of the endings in that game is exactly this. The protagonist goes to live with the wolves. Spoilers. But if you like the graphics so much, why not try out MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries? It had a rough launch, but fellow nerds tell me the game is quite good now. And if you prefer a strategy type of experience, you might enjoy Mech Commander 2. It's an RTS about managing a mercenary company, charming early 3D visuals, olden style FMVs, what's not to like? But my favorite game in the setting is BattleTech, just BattleTech, made by the same studio responsible for the pretty decent Shadowrun RPGs. And you guessed it, it's about managing a mercenary enterprise.
So it's almost here. MechWarrior 2 will be at a software store near you coming this July. Our legal analyst Luke McKissick joins us next to explore key issues in the Simpson trial. Did OJ leave his house with 5 bags but only had 3 when he got to the airport? We'll talk about that and more when Good Day LA continues.